In this video, I'll be sharing the responses I got from ISC2 regarding my email to them a few weeks ago, outlining the discrepancies in the official books and the official materials provided by ISC2. If you haven't watched that video, I recommend taking a look at it before we get too deep into this video. To give you a quick summary, my question to ISC2 included 6 or 7 concepts that are covered in the official CBK training seminar, but not covered in the official books that are sold on Amazon. And these concepts that I sent them are pretty big in terms of how they're covered. I mean, we're talking several paragraphs or even several pages on these topics, and yet nobody covers them. So that was my email in a nutshell, and here's the first response I got from ISC2. So let me just read it out loud for those of you on closed captioning. Okay, so they say, there are several CISSP books available for purchase. The below mentioned materials all align with the CISSP exam outline, effective May 1st, 2021, and are guaranteed to cover all domains and topics from the exam outline. And then it lists here the official training seminar provided by only ISC2, and then they have the official CBK reference, 6th edition. Then we have the official CISSP official study guide, 9th edition, that's Mike Chappell, and then we have the official practice tests, 3rd edition, also by Mike Chappell. He goes on to say different books and materials are designed for different purposes. Some are better suited for exam prep, while others are meant to provide a more holistic overview of information security concepts and best practices. For this reason, the specific content may be presented in different manners and to varying degrees across the different materials. Thank you. So they didn't really say anything with this email. I mean, honestly, it's so vague and unhelpful. And they didn't even answer my question. My question was essentially, what's the source of truth for the common body of knowledge when the terminology looks like it's missing from the books that claim to be official? Anyway, let's look at the other response I got from ISC2. Again, I'll read this out loud for those of you on closed captioning. It says, thank you for your email. The official ISC2 student guide is included and exclusively available with the purchase of most official ISC2 training courses and cannot be purchased elsewhere. The student guide is used as a reference to complement a candidate's training course, which provides a comprehensive review of information system security concepts and industry best practices detailed in the common body of knowledge. ISC2 exams are experience-based that include experience-based items that can only be learned or that cannot be learned by studying alone. If you already have the experience in the domains covered in the CISSP and believe that you have sufficiently studied those domains, you should feel confident that you are qualified to take the exam and pass it. I've also attached the CISSP exam outline for further reference. Thank you, but I already have it. Should you have any further questions or should you have any further queries, then please do not hesitate to contact us. Best regards, yada yada. So this response seemed a little more personable and maybe had a little more info, but I still think it fell short in answering my question. However, the interesting thing in this email is that she mentions the study guide by name, which I didn't do in my original email. My point in mentioning this is that she confirms what I covered in my last video, that the student guide, which isn't available for purchase, is the same as the self-paced training. Keep that in mind as we push onward. So just to let you know, I did respond to both of these emails, so let's pull up my response now. Again, I'll read this out loud. I decided to keep it simple this time, and I'll follow up with more emails as needed. I basically said, thank you so much for the response. I have a follow-up question. Does ISC2 provide source material to the authors, or do they research the exam outline on their own? And this is an important thing to know. I mean, are these authors flying blind, or are they ignoring some of the content provided by ISC2? Let's kind of dissect ISC2's responses. We'll start with response number 1. What did this response actually say? It claims that the books and materials are guaranteed to cover all the domains and topics from the exam outline. The problem, though, is that the topics I shared in my email aren't listed in the exam outline. They're only presented in the training itself. So this guy's making it seem like these resources that he listed cover everything, but from what I'm seeing, they simply don't. And as a reminder, this guy actually listed out the materials that ISC2 endorses, as shown here, which would be the self-paced training, a common body of knowledge reference, and Mike Chappell's book and Mike Chappell's practice questions. The email also says that the books are designed for different purposes, and then he lists out some of the other purposes here, like, exam prep, obviously, versus holistic overview of information security and best practices. And this seems a bit contradictory to the previous statement about how the materials are guaranteed to prepare you for the exam. I mean, honestly, what other purpose would a CISSP book serve if not to prepare you for the exam? The next two phrases are basically the same. He's basically providing a political response, and honestly, the fact that neither of these people answered my question It indicates that they simply don't know why those topics aren't covered. And this confirms my suspicion that ISC2 is working in silos, and that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. I suspect that the people who write the exam questions don't talk to the people who prepare the exam outline, and the people who prepared both the exam questions and the exam outline don't talk to the people who create the official training seminar or the student guide. It's a mess, honestly, and a point of major frustration for all of us. So let's take a look at the second response and break it down a bit. So the second response is interesting, once again, because in my original email I never mentioned the student guide, but she mentions it here as if it were one and the same as the official training seminar. For those of you who didn't watch my last video, there's a public service announcement here. The official training seminar is simply a hired actor reading parts of the book that she mentions here, called the official student guide. So based on her response, it looks like this book is still available for people paying, $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 training packages through their employers. And I know this because that's how I got my hands on one back in 2018. So here's the interesting part. She says that the self-paced training, aka official training seminar, aka official student guide, covers information security concepts and best practices in the common body of knowledge. She doesn't mention any of the official books for sale on Amazon. Isn't that interesting? She's only talking about the official ISC2 materials. So, I think my follow-up question was appropriate, asking her if the authors are given any source material. That information is critical to you, the student, and essentially the customer. It's also critical for me, as someone who writes practice questions for you all, to know what the official source of truth is. Next, she says that the exams are experience-based and not passable through studying alone. And I think we all knew this, so this is really nothing new. You'll see some crazy terminology presented on the exam, and we try to mimic that with our practice questions. Next, she says that basically if you have 5 years of experience along with studying, you should be able to pass the exam, and that's reassuring, I think. So on that note, I'll keep everyone posted on the progression of this discussion with ISC2. I think the main takeaway from this is that the self-paced training, aka official student guide, aka official CISSP training provided by ISC2 itself, is really the only thing that we can consider to be the common body of knowledge. My follow-up question to them is simply to figure out what the authors are doing and whether or not we should trust their materials. So with that, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.